So 60 Minutes finally came out. Now it's been, 12 days, 14 days?
Yeah, a couple of weeks, yeah.
Been a couple of weeks. And there's been one question. Hey, why is one answer different in the promo than the answer you aired the next night in the special from Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris was asked a question, and she gave this long, convoluted answer on Face the Nation from that interview. Then when it aired the next day on CBS, the whole interview, it wasn't anything like that. So people have been saying, can you release the transcript and release the video footage? They always do that. For the full unedited interview, go to 60minutes.com, right? They always do that. At least the transcript. So we've been asking for the transcript. You've been asking for the transcript. The government's been asking for the transcript of the unedited interview. So 60 Minutes takes them 2 weeks to respond over the weekend with this. 60 Minutes gave an excerpt of our interview to Face the Nation that used a longer section of her answer than on 60 Minutes. The statement claimed, same question, same answer, but a different portion of the response. It was more succinct, which allows time for other subjects in a wide-ranging 21-minute long segment. Then they said, but remember, Mr. Trump pulled out of his interview with 60 Minutes and the vice president participated. So, wow, why was that last line necessary in answering the other question? That shows they have an agenda. Why wouldn't they release this? It's taken them 2 weeks.
I really don't get it, other than there's something there they are literally trying to hide. I mean, you could argue in some way, like if someone demanded us to release a transcript of something, and we're like, screw you, we'll do what we want. You could see a sort of indignant response, like it's our material, we'll release what we want. That's not the argument they're making. They're not making any argument. They're not even addressing why, because they keep saying like, well, we edited to 20 minutes to make a 20-minute segment. Well, you got 45 minutes with her. What happened in the other 24 minutes? Why didn't you release that? You didn't have to put it in the show even. As you point out, you could have put it online.
Okay, so here's what you need to do. You need to email or write, snail mail, but I would suggest email. Email the stations, make it to the general manager. You look for your local CBS television station, and you ask them why they are not demanding for their own local audience to be informed on what looks like CBS News election interference. Here's why you write that. Because a letter has to be saved. Any complaint like that has to be saved for the FCC. That's how you get their license pulled. You don't do it, nationally. CBS News doesn't have a license, but the local stations have license. And those local stations will call up to CBS and say, what are you doing to us? Mm-hmm. Release that information. So if you want results on this, write, snail mail, or email the general manager of your local CBS station. Do it today. Big news, tomorrow I am releasing my next book, Propaganda Wars, How the Global Elite Control What You See, Think, and Feel. We all know that we're watching propaganda. It dominates every part of our lives now, from our children's biology textbooks to presidential debate stages. But what most people don't understand is how powerful and well-organized this propaganda scheme has become. Who are the main players that are transforming our country? What do they have planned? What can we do to stop them? Find out tomorrow. Join me in the fight to take our country back. Pre-order Propaganda Wars now at glennbeck.com/books or Amazon, wherever you get your books. It is out tomorrow. The audiobook is tremendous, I think. It's really, really good. This one will tell you how to stop things. For instance, not in this book, but let me give you one of the things that will be helpful for CBS. We were just talking about it a minute ago. You want to stop the propaganda. Well, it seems like you can't get any answers from CBS, right? Even Congress won't give it. They won't give an answer to Congress. So they're hiding something. So how do you get to CBS? CBS cares about its local affiliates. And if the local affiliates are squeezed, they will report that to the FCC because they have to. So I want you to write a letter to your local CBS affiliate, your local television CBS affiliate, and write it to the general manager, CC the FCC. So they know there's record of this, because all of those letters have to be saved for their renewal of their license. And if there is an overwhelming number of letters addressing this propaganda and using language about your local community, we don't care what the rest of the country might be thinking, but we believe this is propaganda from the network. How can you, as a local station, stand by and allow this to happen? We demand answers from CBS. They won't give him the answers. Well, you should be asking for those answers. Otherwise, you're not serving your community. Make sure you put that in. You're not serving your community. That's how license challenges come up. And there isn't anyone who is a general manager who likes to see a letter like that. No one. Because that just gives the FCC ammunition. You just want the FCC to walk in, see your public file, and go, okay, you're good. You don't want anything that just makes that sticky. They will call if you're starting to give them lots of letters. They will call CBS and say, can you end this, please? Because this is killing us.
It's a similar approach that many took toward, and you discussed earlier about Bud Light. When people, instead of, it wasn't call Bud Light, it was a tweet to Bud Light. It was talk to the distributors.
Yes.
And that made a real difference in that moment.
It was the distributors that broke the back finally.
Yeah.
Because remember, the distributors said, we're not going to take Bud Light. We're not going to take it. The local bars, we're not going to take it. And so once those distributors fall apart, they're in trouble.
And it's important to understand with 60 Minutes, this is supposedly a news organization, a news program, the news program. Right. We are not asking them, hey, you need to ask tougher questions of Kamala Harris. Obviously, I feel like they should. But it's their editorial control on that aspect. What we're asking for is what actually occurred. We've got a presidential election decision to make. Can you tell us what went on here? And I will be honest, at the beginning of this, I kind of they edit.
You always do. We always do.
I try to give the benefit of the doubt whenever necessary, or whenever possible, because I'm a conservative, and my personal political bias is to want one side to win. So I try to question that all the time. So I'm not just random. There's so many people on the freaking internet just saying everything that's good for their side. I don't want to be that person.
I don't either.
So at the beginning of this, I kind of suspected, 60 Minutes edits this stuff all the time. You're right. They typically will release, larger portions or fuller context online.
Especially if there's a problem. Especially if there's a question.
And that's the thing. Journalists would react that way. We're not asking for them to we're not micromanaging the way they ask questions or why didn't they follow up on this. We can complain about that stuff all day. We just want to know what occurred. There was a 45-minute interview. Their telling of the story, it was a 45-minute interview in which they aired 21 minutes. Why are we not knowing what happened in the other 24 minutes? Why? What happened there? At the beginning, I was skeptical it was something really bad for the Harris campaign. The way they are acting here, the fact that after all of this pressure, they haven't just said, okay, here it is, just look at it. We didn't do anything wrong. You might have think we made a wrong editorial choice, but it's all right there. The fact that they haven't done that in 2 weeks makes me think something really bad happened. So, something where she really said something that might really damage her campaign. And I don't know what to think other than that. This is bizarre behavior from an organization that's supposed to be protecting its journalistic credentials.
And you know what? It may not even be on that question. That question,
I know, it might not
at all.
Yeah,
but that leads us to believe if they're editing that question, what other questions did they do that anywhere? You need the full transcript and the full tape. Because like you said, 41 minutes. Here's what really doesn't make sense to me. You have a woman who's not giving interviews. At the time this aired, she had just started giving interviews. Okay, so it's her first major interview since who was it? ABC, I think
Dana Bash did one with CNN. Both of them. Remember that?
Right. So it's her first major network solo interview. All right. In a time when everybody wants to see it, we watched it. I don't want to watch. I'm not watching it if Joe Biden's giving an interview. I've seen it. Been there, done that. I got it. I and everybody else in America, even her supporters, want to know where she actually stands on things. So why would you have a 40-minute interview? You have 41 minutes in an hour, okay? And why would they only use 21 minutes with all of the setup and everything else? They probably used, I'll be generous, they used 16 minutes of her actually speaking, okay? Why wouldn't you want to drive traffic even to your website?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you make the entire thing? It's not your Sunday typical 60 minutes. Why wouldn't you make the whole thing just that we sat down for an hour-long interview, and you'll see it this week on 60 Minutes.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do that?
And I watched that whole hour, Glenn, as I mentioned. They had Tim Walz on for a segment, which is moderately defensible, right? Like you're putting on, it's a kind of a strange choice when you have more material from Kamala Harris. Why wouldn't you air that instead of a Tim Walz interview, which no one really cares about? But he's on the ticket. Okay, kind of defensible. But the last 20 minutes of the show was some produced piece about whether the Arizona election was stolen in 2020. And obviously with the very heavy tilt that it was not, and look at all these poor people who, campaign workers who got, bad tweets sent to them and things like that. Okay, you want to cover that? All right. I don't see why it's really relevant right now, but okay, maybe you think it is. But the idea that you would bump 15 minutes of a Kamala Harris interview with this context around it to air a pre-produced piece about what happened in the 2020 election in Arizona? No. What the hell is that? That's the most insane decision of all time.
Yeah.
You want to throw stupid Tim Walz on there for a few minutes, maybe you can defend that. Indefensible to leave 24 minutes on the cutting room floor of Kamala Harris when you're airing that. Air that another week. This is a primetime special. It makes no sense at all.
I would post your letter to the GM or the vice presidents of your local CBS stations. I'd post them on X. Let people see that.
Tag us as well.
Yeah, tag us. Tag the FCC. Make sure you tag the FCC.
And note, as Glenn noted, the words community, standards.
Yeah, you're not serving your community. This is not helpful to our local community because that's the directive that they have to hit.